Hey, yeah, it is Hannah Slater here, your host of Girl Chat, and welcome to another episode of Girl Chat. On today's episode, we're going to talk all about my pageant experience and all how I got into it, why I keep doing it, all of that jazz. Now, if you were looking last week for last week's episode, I did not post one because we were at a national pageant in Orlando, Florida. We were gone for 12 days, and we were actually on Sunday, December 1st, we were crowned National All-American Miss. So I'm going to talk about my journey, how I got into it, why I still do it, and why I think it's beneficial. So let's jump in. I do want to say I'm sorry for the lighting. It is not great. We have a winter storm, so it's really dark and gloomy and snowy, but that's okay. We talk about adapting in this video, so let's just roll with the lighting, right? So I did pageants when I was little, like when I was really, really little. My mom used to have to go on stage with me. She said she thought it was like about 2 when I started. And so I did it for a really, really long time, and then I took a big break. And my mom poked me in middle school about doing it, and I was like, And then we were on our way actually up to Hayward before we moved here, and I just randomly had signed up for a pageant. It was called Outstanding American Miss because it was in our area. It was close by. And there I was a junior teen, so I was young, and I placed first runner-up at that pageant. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is amazing. Like, let's keep doing it. And then following a couple weeks after, it was actually a pretty quick turnaround. I signed up for a system called Young American Miss International, YAMI. And there I actually won. So we had an incredible year as an international queen. Then after that year, I jumped around in the Miss America organization, and then I went back to Outstanding American Miss because I had aged up. And in the Miss America organization, I never placed. And when I went back to Outstanding American Miss, I think I was like second runner-up, something like that. And then I took another little break. Miss America organization was hard to compete in. You talk about politics at a young age, and it just wasn't my fit. And I had always had my eyes on NAM, but I was terrified because it's a big system. So I was really scared. And at that point, we didn't have a coach. We didn't have hair and makeup. We didn't have any of that. It was just me, my mom and my dad. My brother is just kind of going with how we think, what we feel is right, what we like to do, all of that. And then after Miss America happened, I took a little bit of a break, and then I think it was in 2018, I competed at NAM for the very first time as a teen. And I placed first runner-up there, and I believe I won some optionals, but I got to go to nationals as a city queen, so we did. And my first nationals at National American Miss, I was so underprepared. And I was a freshman at college when I went, and I was so underprepared. I had never been to a national pageant that was that intense, not since I was like a little girl. And I was very not prepared for it at all. So we didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to prepare for it. I didn't really prepare for it. And I was very intimidated by the system. I love the system a lot. I knew I had always loved it. It had always been intriguing to me, but I was really scared. So after that, then that summer, I went back to Outstanding American Miss, and I placed first runner-up. And I sat for a while. A whole year had gone by, and then I bit the bullet in my senior year of college. So I took another little bit of a break, and then my senior year of college, I did UNM, and I invested in a coach, all of that jazz. I had a hair and makeup team for UNM at the very first time, and that system the nationals wasn't as long. It's still obviously very intense, just not as long. And I placed top 12, but I was people's choice, so that means people just voted for me to be in top 12, like my family and friends, things like that. So I did place on my own. And there is where I met who are my now coaches, which is Miss Amanda and Katie. I met Miss Amanda at UNM and at Forum that April of that year, and I just really, really, really liked Amanda, and we connected really well. So I think my purpose of competing at UNM were to find my now coaches who I love so much, and that is Amanda and Miss Katie. And after that, I I loved it. I loved the community service aspect of it. I obviously love getting dressed up and wearing makeup and all of that. Like, I love all aspects of pageantry. And so I bit the bullet and we went back to NAM Nationals after a couple year break. We had a lot of breaks. So in 2022, it must have been 2022, I decided January that I wanted to compete for NAM Wisconsin in August, our first year in Hayward. And so I had coaching consistently. I was like on a routine there for a while, like 2 months out. I was seeing my coaches every week, sometimes even two times a week. So we were really, really preparing. And that's where I really started to change my lifestyle. It was 2 years ago. Of how can I be the best version of Hannah? What can I do to be the best version mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally? That's what I was planning to do, right? Like, that was my goal. At state, I was going through, is when I started to go through a lot of personal stuff. But there we placed first runner-up, and that lit a fire under my butt. Like, I loved my experience at NAM. I was so ready for it. Like, I just wanted to keep going. So that year we decided to go to nationals in November, which was last November. And I continued to train really hard, meeting with my coaches consistently, and really changing my lifestyle of how can I be the healthiest version of me. While I was training for that last year, I was going through a lot. I was really, really going through a lot of stuff. And we're going to dive deeper into that at a later episode, kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of what I mean when I say I was going through a lot, or when I say when I hit rock bottom, what does that mean? What does that look like? All that jazz. I've been asked a lot, so we will dive into it just at a different episode. So last year at NAM Nationals, I loved my experience. I had met so many incredible women, and I just loved it. And we placed third runner-up last year. And so right after last year, I knew we were going to compete at state again this last August. So I continued to train, and at this point, I had been training for a solid year and a half before we went to NAM State this past August. And there I was first runner-up again. So I was bummed. The ultimate goal is to walk away with National American Miss Wisconsin title and to wear Wisconsin across my chest. That has always been one of my biggest goals. And I was really bummed. But I knew that we already had our hotels booked for the national pageant that just happened. We already had our plane tickets booked. Like, I was going to nationals no matter what happened. And so I had to sit back and just change my mindset of that door closed as red banner, but just because that door closed doesn't mean that blue banner AA side was closed. That door was open. And I love Hayward so much, so I'm so blessed that I got to represent Hayward all week long and wear Hayward across my chest. So I had to rethink. But at NAM State is when I found that I wanted to launch Girl Chat, and that I really wanted to continue to dive into who I am, because at NAM State was my purpose. I believe at NAM State was so much bigger than a crown and banner. I think my purpose at NAM State was to truly pull myself out of rock bottom. And the goal of competing made me pull myself out of rock bottom and get to somebody that I love again, and that I can cherish, and that I can celebrate her. And yes, I was bummed. I was really disappointed. But it's God blessed me with it or saved me from it, right? And that's what I say. That's what my coaches say. So that's kind of how I just had to change my mindset. So we started coaching very, very consistently, once a week, 2 times a week once we were getting really, really close to it. And I really found who I was in this journey, which is something that I love about pageantry, is that it continues to make me want to be better and to be the best person that I can be, and the best version of myself. So going into this year, NAM Nationals was absolutely terrifying because we had changed a lot of my talking points. So a lot of the things that I struggled with this year, being at rock bottom, my emotionally abusive relationship, toxic environments, being manipulated, all of that stuff now that was kind of inspired, that inspired Girl Chat. My experience of going through something so extremely difficult and challenging and hard and embarrassing inspired me for Girl Chat, which was obviously my social movement. So it was a huge talking point in not only my intro, but also my interviews. So we had so many different talking points that were brand new to me that really made me continue to dig deeper into who I am, my purpose, my why, and also made me do a lot of reflecting. So from August to November, my coaches and I, we dug deep into every aspect of my life and really digested that and continued to grow. And then, National Week was here, and I was still waiting for some of my wardrobe pieces, which I kind of talked about before. And we got to NAM Nationals, and the very first outfit that I had shipped to me was my runway outfit. And I was so excited to wear it. And my pants had literally came in 45 minutes before my brothers and I left. So I was really, really excited. We couldn't get it to zip. Nobody in my family could get it to zip. And it wasn't tight on me. We had plenty of room to zip it. It just had so much fabric right here that we couldn't get it to zip. So I had to change my game plan, right? My check-in outfit then became my actual runway outfit, and an outfit that I had brought just as a backup was what my check-in outfit was, which ended up working out perfectly. I really loved that jumpsuit that I wore for check-in, so it worked out great. And ultimately, I don't even think my runway outfit would have fit on the stage because we're low to the ground and it had a massive overskirt on it. So that part all, I think, really worked out for its own reason, or for its own purpose, for its greater purpose that I didn't necessarily see right then in that moment. And then once we made that change, talking about optionals, I had done a lot of optionals. I had done runway, casual wear, top model, photogenic, fitness, spokesmodel. And I'm going to be very honest with you. The beginning of my week, I was very impressed with my performance. I am my hardest critic, like I'm sure we all are on ourselves. And I had put a lot of time and energy into my optionals as well. So we had red carpet awards, which is where basically all of the optional awards are awarded. And I did really well in last year's optional. So I kind of had the expectation on myself, the pressure on myself to do well again this year. And we did have some accomplishments. I'm not going to dismiss those accomplishments, and I'm really grateful for those accomplishments. But I went over on my spokesmodel, so I had the buzzer, and you get docked for going on the buzzer. And I had practiced my spokesmodel again and again and again. And it's such an important story for me, so I was really bummed about that. We didn't place in my casual wear. I was really bummed about. We didn't place in fresh face. We didn't place in fitness. And I was really bummed about that. I worked really hard for those. And I was so frustrated with myself that I went over the buzzer and spokesmodel. So once I went over the buzzer and spokesmodel, I knew right then and there that I could either let that determine the rest of my week, or I could change my mindset right then and there. And I knew that it didn't do me any purpose to dwell on it because it was already said and done. Nothing I could do would change my performance. I can't go back in time and make me speak faster. I couldn't do anything. So I knew that I had to leave that the next day, get a fresh night of sleep, and it is what it is, right? Needless to say, I still had speaking to do where I had to be a minute on my intro. I had to be a minute or I got docked, and intros required. And last year I had the buzzer on my intro for prelims. So there was a lot of stress, and just like interview, we had a ton of new talking points. So in intro, I had a whole new intro that I had never competed with before, and I had new content that was in it that I had never talked about before. And last year I had the buzzer for intro, so I had all of these nerves, and I was very actually terrified to do my intro. But it went great because I took the pressure off myself and said, I've done this. I know what it is. The buzzer isn't going to happen. I can do this. And it went really, really great. But if I wouldn't have changed my mindset right away, and if I would have still been hung up on the fact that I didn't place an X, Y, and Z optional, then I don't think I would have had my best performances throughout the week, either for my required competitions. And it was really, really essential for me to adapt and overcome and switch that mindset. And to be honest, I'm really proud that I was able to do that, because oftentimes that can be really, really challenging, right? Like you work so incredibly hard for something and it just doesn't work out. And that's okay because there's something different. There's something better, or it's just not your time yet. And I know that it's not great to hear those things because I had been told those a lot, but it's true. And as soon as I started to believe that, I was like, okay, whatever. So we got into our required competitions. We started off with gown, and gown went really smoothly. The stage was a little bit slippery. My arms weren't moving like how I wanted them to, but overall I was really happy with my performance. And then we went into my intro. Actually, we went into my interview, and I had 9 interviews. And I felt really, really great about all of my interviews. There was a couple of things that I had to overcome right then in my interview, which was one of them, one of my judges, they kind of like the eye contact, kind of like I am right now. I'm not always looking at you. There's something like going on in the back. And I almost got distracted by that, but I was like, I can't get distracted. Like I have to stay on topic. So I overcame that right then and there. And I was really proud of that. And then we went in introduction, and it went great. My introduction sounded just like I had practiced, so I was really, really happy with it. And I got to my final prep session Sunday morning before crowning, and I saw both of my coaches that morning. And my one coach was like, yeah, how's it going? You know, X, Y, Z. I'm like, I think this is the best performance I've ever had. Like, I'm genuinely very, very ecstatic with my performance. Like, I think you can see the hard work that I've been putting in for consistently the last 2 years. She's like, well, tell me how you really feel. I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen at crowning. There's 120 very, very talented, capable, and experienced women that I'm competing against. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's in store for me. But if I would have compared myself, if I would have compared myself to anyone I was competing against, comparison is a thief of joy. So I couldn't, and I didn't, and I wouldn't allow myself to go down that rabbit hole. But I knew that I was competing against extremely talented women, and I'm so blessed that I got to meet so many of them and have so many incredible conversations. But I didn't know what was in store for me. My coach had told me, my other coach, Miss Katie, had told me, God bless me with it or save me from it. Now, if you remember, I was really bummed that we didn't win the Wisconsin title. And come to find out, after the Miss State Queens had their interviews, there was a lot of what I have been told political questions. If you know me, politics aren't my thing, and I don't like talking about them. I will avoid the conversation, or I will change the topic because I don't want to talk about politics. It's just not me. And I firmly believe that God was saving me from those questions because I would not have been able to answer them as well as I was able to answer all the questions that I did get asked about me, my platform, Silverstar Market, Girl Chat, all of that jazz, right? Who I am. So in the big picture, I really think God was saving me from those kind of conversations because those are not my cup of tea. And after I left my coach's room, I knew that I needed to believe in myself. I knew that I had put in the work. I knew what my worth is, and I knew that I was capable of this, right? Like, we had been training so incredibly hard in all aspects of my life. And I knew that I needed to take it one step at a time. My coach was like, you can't think about the ending. You need to think about what you're going through right now. Our opening number dance. It was actually the first time I had never messed up an opening number dance. And I'm a dancer, so it's kind of embarrassing to mess up opening number dances. But that was the first time ever I didn't mess up an opening number dance. And we went back out for top 12. And I did not know if we were going to make top 12. Again, 120 extremely talented, successful women. I just wasn't sure. And then my name was called in the top 12. Hayward was, and I was like, holy buckets. Like, okay, now I gotta do my intro though. So I warmed up my intro behind the stage I think I just did it like twice. I warmed it up, and I didn't even think about the buzzer. Didn't even think about the time. I knew what I needed to do, and I knew that I knew how to execute it. So I just trusted in it. And then we get you go back on stage and you dance like with a singer, and then they announced top 5. And I'm just in the moment thinking, you know, what an accomplishment it is to make top 12 in the nation. And then I was called into top 5, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. So as soon as you get called into top 5, you get taken off stage into a back room and put noise canceling headphones on. And I was like, I got back in the room, I put my headphones on, and there's water back there, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus, for giving us water, because I get cotton mouth during pageants terribly bad. And I was like, and normally I always have cough drops, or my mom have cough drops, but we were in the back room, so I had nothing, and I was like, oh my goodness, but thankfully they had water there, and I was like, God, thank you for showing up for me, right? And I think I must have been the 4th person called in top 5, so it goes in order. And the worker was like, okay, like, it's your time to go. So I went up, and my coach was like, no matter what, if you get called in the top 5, you need to take your time backstage, because you can't be out of breath, right? Like, it's a long walk. You can't be out of breath. So I was like, okay. I was hurrying, but still, you know, taking my time, but being respectful of obviously everybody else's time. And I got on stage. Before I went on stage, I was like, okay, I got this. And my question was something about, like, how do you decide what to post on social media? And it didn't necessarily go quite as planned, because one of the first things my coaches told me right away is you answer the question. I did not answer the question right away. Second thing, my coach said your hand goes on your hip. Hand was not on my hip. I like to speak with my hands, obviously. But on my onstage question, I talked publicly about topics that I didn't think I would actually ever really publicly speak to, especially something that's being televised. But Girl Chat is all about a social movement where women support women, where we talk about topics that society doesn't necessarily want to talk about, right? And for me, that comes from my personal experience of leaving an emotionally abusive relationship. What it has been like hitting rock bottom and pulling myself out of rock bottom, which is really hard. But society doesn't talk about those things. And that's my goal. That's my purpose for Girl Chat, is to create that environment where we get to talk about it. And I said that on the national stage, and the buzzer went off. I had 30 seconds to answer, and the buzzer went off, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, one, what did I just say nationally? That's also being televised. I cannot believe I just said that, even though it's very, very true, and it's part of my story. And I had talked about it with my parents and my brothers and my coaches so many times about what I went through and how it has affected me and how I was at rock bottom. We had talked about it so much, but I'm really proud that I was that vulnerable on stage with so many people, because that's what people need to see, is your vulnerability. I didn't know, again, I like blank out when I'm on stage, so I didn't know. I didn't know. I got off stage and I was like, whew, it's done and over with. I think I did good on my onstage question. And people in the back were like, that was an incredible onstage question. Like, your content, like, you shared your heart. And I was like, okay. And we started getting called, and nothing was really going through my head. I was just like, okay. 3rd runner-up, or 4th runner-up, 3rd runner-up, 2nd runner-up. Oh my gosh, it's me and one of my really good friends, JC, that are in the top 2. Oh my gosh, they called Chicago as the 1st runner-up. That means me, Hayward, won. And you guys, the goal has always, I might get emotional because it still hasn't really sunk in. The goal was always to win a national title in the National American Miss organization. That has always been my goal. For the last 5 years, that has been my goal for this, in my pageant world, is to win a national title at National American Miss, whether it was red banner or blue banner. Although that was always my goal, I never actually knew if that was something that was a part of my plan. You know, last year when I was called 3rd runner-up, I kind of thought it was just a fluke. And I say that because I think pageantry was one of my saving graces when I was in the lowest point of my life. And I thought last year was just to give me a glimmer of hope of what could be. I never actually thought that I would be a contender for a national title, let alone actually win a national title. And that's not, maybe it's because I didn't believe in myself. I'm not sure. But I think when I changed my mindset of, well, if it's meant for you, it will not pass you by, and God bless me with it or save me from it. And then ultimately when I started to realize my worth, what I have to offer, but also understanding that it's X amount of people's opinions. So for me, it's 9 people's opinions. And there could be things that I did perfect that somebody doesn't like. And once I really started to focus on my progress and how I'm seeing myself grow through pageantry is really when it started to change for me. So hearing my name be called, it still feels surreal, and I'm so blessed for this opportunity. But I also know that I worked so hard for that goal to happen. And I also know that there was a lot of challenges that I had to go through to get to this point. It was not a walk in the park. It was not something that I just signed up for and won. Like, it took a lot of grit. It took a lot of determination. And, you know, last year when I was preparing for NAM State and NAM Nationals, I was told that my goals were too big. My dreams are too big. Like, you're not capable of that. You can't do that. Or I often got asked, why do you even compete in pageantry? Like, shouldn't you be doing something else? Why is it important to you? And those are from people that were supposed to be close to me, but were people that, instead of like genuinely asking me what pageantry is about and why is it inspiring you, it was just automatically they were degrading me for competing in pageantry. But I know that I can confidently speak in front of a group of people, which is America's #1 fear, and that used to be my #1 fear. But because of pageantry, I can do it. Because of pageantry, I launched a social movement where I talk about things that society doesn't talk about and that they're hard to talk about, because I have the confidence in myself and I know that my voice is important and that it matters. And that's the message that I want to share. And if you are thinking about signing up for a pageant, do it. I have met some of the most incredible women of my life. Some of the greatest women in my life are through pageantry. They teach you life skills. They teach you how to interview. They teach you how to answer really difficult questions and random questions. And they teach you how to prepare for something. And although it took me 5 years to achieve this goal, even though I have been competing in pageantry much longer than 5 years, I'm really proud of the journey that I went on, and I wouldn't change anything about that journey, because every time I was told no, it was for a reason. I know that NAM Wisconsin 2023, I would not have been the best title holder I could have been, because I was going through so much personally that I wouldn't have been able to successfully do it and juggle Silver Star. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I know last year at Nationals, same thing. I wouldn't have been capable of being a national queen because my personal life, what I was going through was so terrible. And one of the people that were supposed to be my biggest supporters did not support me and wouldn't support me and thought that what I was doing was silly. And didn't have the ambition of changing the world like I think, which is how I think, you know. And now that I am back to my support system, who is 110% supportive, after I made those hard, they're actually really easy cuts, but once I made those decisions of who to nix out because they weren't Team Hannah and they weren't supportive, everything became a lot easier because the people in my circle were like, yes, you absolutely can achieve that. No, it's not too big. Like, yes, you are capable. No, you're not crazy. And that was such a big game changer, because when you surround yourself with people who believe in you, you believe in yourself so much more. At least that's how it was for me. Now, I know that I have 1 year. I have now just under 365 days to leave a legacy of impact, but that is my goal. And I'm so blessed that I get to have this journey, and I really cannot wait to share it with y'all. We will dive deep into what I mean when I talk about what it was like to hit rock bottom, how I knew I was there, what I did to overcome that. And we will talk about the struggles that I experienced at a later episode. Right now, we're going to ride out this wave of just being genuinely excited and happy. But it is on a topic that I want to talk about, and I know you all have been asking me for it because a lot of you can relate. So we will talk about it. There's a lot that has changed for me, and quite honestly, the first part of my 24th year, because I'm 24 years old, was absolutely terrible. And now I'm living the best part of 24. So I've experienced both ends of the spectrum. Crazy this year. Like the bottom of the bottom to the highest of the highest. Like I've experienced very ends of the spectrum this year. So we will talk about it. I will not leave you guys hanging, I promise. And I cannot wait to take you on this journey. If you do have other topics you want to hear me talk about, leave them in a comment or personally message me if you don't want to. If the topic is just something a little bit more personal, just send me a message. I am open, and I just want to keep giving what you guys want to hear and topics that you want to have and conversations that you want to hear and want to be a part of. So drop them down below. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in about my pageant journey and how we got to this point and all of that jazz. I look forward to seeing you next episode.